Hey, everybody, we are going to spend some time tonight in our Battle Ready series talking about headaches. As we make our way through this year, every single month we are highlighting a certain area of health that is just of concern that we know that people are dealing with and are looking for answers to. And tonight is no exception. So we are going to spend some time talking through headaches, working through headaches, discussing the causes of headaches, which is really the most important conversation. But at the end of the day, with all the people that we see every single day, one of the most common symptoms that people come in with is headaches. And here's the problem, people are so used to having headaches that they actually think it's just part of normal life. And I'll share this little story. So, last week we had a lady come in and she actually came in because of her shoulder. But as we were going through her history and her consult, she just shared with us that she has headaches every single day. And I asked her specifically, like, how long have you had these headaches, and when do you remember them starting? And she said that she felt like she had been having headaches every single day since high school. Now, here's the thing. This lady's 80 years old. So can you imagine every single day of her life for the last however long, 65 years, she's been having headaches, and to the point where everything to her is just done with a headache. And so I think if you're like me, you realize that life is hard enough without headaches. But can you imagine having to deal with a headache every single day and still deal with all the stuff that you have to deal with? I know for me, just having headaches in the past, and even now, every now and then having one, that's just miserable enough. But every single day is crazy to me. And so for us and for her and for you, it's not just recognizing that we have headaches, but it's really doing everything we can to figure out why those headaches are there and what we can do about it. And what I would say too is this: regardless of the symptom, if we're talking about headaches, if we're talking about back pain, if we're talking about constipation or hormone problems, what I want you to know is that the symptoms that you have in your life are only there for one of two reasons. One reason a symptom will show up is actually to help heal you. It's part of the healing process. An example would be a fever. An example would be throwing up, like, even though that's not great, it's actually part of your body healing. The only other reason a symptom would show up, number two, is it's trying to let you know there's a bigger problem. So when it comes to headaches, that's exactly what we're dealing with. It's a symptom that shows up to let you know that there's a bigger problem, and that today is what we are going to spend some time talking about. So I love this slide because it just gives us a great visual of how symptoms work, and specifically of how icebergs work. So if you didn't know this, but like what gets our attention in life is what we see, what we feel, what is aggravating, what's frustrating. And in regards to this picture, the symptom would be what's above the water, right? So it's the headache in our example for tonight in this battle ready class. But what's causing the headache is what's below the surface. Just like what's actually the bigger part of the iceberg is below the surface, not above. But when you're in a boat or when you're in an airplane, what you see is what's above the water. And what I would suggest is that for our purpose tonight, the top of the water, or what we see above the water, is headaches specifically. But what's below the water is what's actually causing it, and that's the stress in your life. And we'll talk about that a little bit later. But at the end of the day, really all symptoms, as far as I'm concerned, are direct related to the stress in your life. But what I want you to start thinking about or walk away with is just understanding that, number one, the symptoms that we have are just a body signal. It's a signal that our body's trying to tell us that there's a problem or that it's trying to heal something. But also, symptoms can tell us what direction our health is going. If stress is overwhelming our body, the symptoms will show up. That's letting us know that we are overwhelmed, that our body is breaking down. The question is, are you listening? So we are going to jump in as we go through this tonight. We're going to talk about some dangerous beliefs, and then we're going to talk about some new empowering and encouraging and problem focused beliefs that we need to be focused on. So the first dangerous belief that we're going to hit on tonight is this idea that the headaches are the problem. And we've already talked about that just a little bit, but I think we have to revisit it because our entire life we've been told that. And we treat the headaches like they are the problem. That's why we take something for it and then we just keep living our life. And so the first thing we want to recognize that the headache is not the problem, but it just lets us know that there is a problem. And here's how that works. So as we walk through life, if you can take a look at this continuum here, we are literally moving back and forth on this constantly. So as you're looking at your screen, if you're more towards the right now, where you are feeling good and you're healing good and you are digesting food properly and you sleep at night and you wake up with energy, that is where you want to be. And that's what our bodies are designed for. Our bodies are designed to be healthy, our bodies are designed to be strong. But as life happens, we start to shift on this continuum in the other direction. And because our body is smart, it wants to let us know that that's happening. And so the way that it does that, as you can see on here, by the time we start to move over towards this red end, it starts to give us these signs and symptoms. Well, the signs and symptoms that we're talking about are things like headaches. It lets us know which direction we're going. The problem is if we think the headache is the problem, we will just cover it up or manage it, but we'll change nothing else. We'll ask no other questions. And guess what? We just keep moving in that same direction. And so what then ends up happening is either the headaches come back again even stronger, or excuse me, another symptom shows up. And so what we have to start realizing is, number one, the symptoms that we have just let us know which direction on this continuum that we're heading, because we're all on it all the time. And number two, when they do show up, it allows us then to ask the questions and do some inventory to start taking care of ourselves better, to get to the root of the problem, which then allows us then to get our momentum back and move back in the other direction towards health and wellness and vitality, which is where I know we all want to be. So now another dangerous belief that I wanted to jump into is this idea that drugs work. Now, here's the thing. Let's just talk through this, because there are some drugs that actually do what we want them to do in regards to covering up symptoms. There are. There are drugs that can lower blood pressure. There's drugs that can help with headaches, and there's no doubt about it. But here's what we have to make sure that we understand when we're talking about this. No drug ever fixes the problem. Does that make sense? Like, there are absolutely drugs that can cover up symptoms, and it can even help manage symptoms. And you know what? And sometimes there's a place for that. But what I hope we can all agree on is that there's not a single drug on the planet that actually fixes the problem. And here's why. Because there's not a single drug on the planet that will replace the fact that we need to exercise and move. There's not a single drug on the planet that will replace the fact that we need to eat high quality foods and make sure they get into our body. There's not a single drug on the planet that will change the fact that we need to get a certain amount of sleep at night, that we need to get a certain amount of water, that we actually need to get our spines adjusted and the nervous system cleared. There's just not a drug on the planet that will help get to the root cause of any issue, even though they may help us with some acute or immediate outcomes if we need that. And that I'm not going to argue that. But I think when it comes to getting health, we just have to be able to at least agree on the fact that the drug does not fix the problem. When we have this conversation, when we talk about the drugs not fixing the problem, it really makes me think about drug commercials in general, where, when you see the commercials and they'll have some frolicking person jumping around, or, something that looks, fun and enjoyable. But what the actual words are saying is about 20 seconds of what the drug treats, and about, a minute and 40 seconds of all the side effects that you're going to get. And so I thought about this image and this picture whenever we were talking about it, or I was putting this together, just specifically with the drugs. And it just really is it. It's like you're taking this for this, and you have to take this for that, and you have to take this for that. And because this sequence of events just happens, and it leads from one thing to the next. And I'll just throw this out there too, especially for if someone is just frustrated with the recurring and the recurring and the recurring of headaches. It's really just the definition of insanity, truthfully. But what it really comes down to is, if we keep doing the same things we've been doing, we are going to keep getting the results that we've been getting. We just will. So if we wake up and have a headache and we take Tylenol, then and we just keep living the same life, and then the next day we wake up and we have a headache and we take Tylenol, and it's just this repeat. The dangerous part of that is that the whole time that stuff is happening, and that every day when those headaches come back, there's actually a bigger problem on the inside of your body that you're not aware of, that's getting worse every single day. So let's jump in here. Let's break these headaches down. Let's talk about the different types of headaches, and let's actually get some answers here. Okay, so let's jump into the different types of headaches that we have. So we have stress headaches. We're going to talk about sinus headaches. We're also going to talk about migraine headaches. Now, there's some other ones too. Stress and tension are there. There's also cluster headaches. So, but at the end of the day, these are the three most common. We're going to get into these. We're going to talk about where the root is, and also some solutions to just give you some answers to make sure that after you leave today, you've got some action steps to tackle these things called headaches. Around here, we always call the spine the suit of armor. And the reason we do that is because it's literally protecting your central nervous system. Your central nervous system is such an important system in your body. It literally integrates and coordinates all the other systems to make sure they work. But it's also the only system in your body that's fully protected. And literally from the day you were born till the day you die, you've got the same suit of armor there. And it is your spine, because your brain sits at the top. Your spinal cord runs literally all the way down the middle of your spinal column. Those bones are there to protect that. And these little holes that you see here on these vertebrae are where the nerves that come out at every single level, and they literally are attached to every cell, every tissue, every gland in your body, and transferring information at almost 400 miles an hour every second of every day, and you don't think a thing about it. How awesome and cool is that? Let's take a little deeper look. So this is a great look right here at the central nervous system. So the autonomic specifically, but also just the central nervous system too, as we look at this slide. And what you're going to see is your brain, just like I said before. So what makes your heart beat, your lungs breathe, your immune system work, your hormones release, you digesting food, you thinking, you smelling, all of that is done because of the power that's in your brain. It does it all. And that power has to be able to get from your brain to your body. And what's amazing about that is you have a spinal cord that's attached. It goes all the way down the middle. And then, just like we said before, those nerves go out. And if you think about it, depending on the level of area or the level or the damage that's there, the inflammation that starts to build, that's where the impact come from. So, when we are working with a patient, when we are actually even looking to adjust someone, they're laying on a table, actually what we see or understand in our brains is that we're actually looking at like this huge circuit breaker box that's trying to transfer this amazing amount of complex intelligence and power everywhere in the body that it needs to go. And so with an adjustment, what we're trying to make sure is that at every level that circuit is fully turned on. Because if it's not, it's going to affect things. So obviously, if the circuit's not turned on, if it's attached to a muscle, it can make that muscle hurt. But more importantly, what if it's attached to your heart? What if it's attached to your liver? What if it's attached to your gallbladder? What if it's attached to your thyroid? Well, that means those aren't working. And there's so many people that I've met over the years that felt like they had a thyroid problem or a digestive issue or a prostate problem. But what they really didn't realize is that they just had a circuit in an area of their spine, which was transferring information back and forth, and that circuit was turned off, and it had been turned off for a long time, and they had no idea. And just by clearing that out and turning that power back on, the body starts to work. And so we have to always remember that the body is made to be healthy, that the body is trying to recover and heal every single day, but the stress of our life is interfering with that. And the amount of stress and the type of stress and the areas of your body that hold on to that stress will impact directly what happens in regards to the performance of your body. It's just the way it works. And so if you are someone who holds on to stress at the base of your skull, then you're probably someone also who is going to have more headaches. You're also probably someone that could have issues with anxiety and depression and sleep and blood pressure. If you're someone that holds that stress and tension, across your shoulders at the base of your neck, you're probably someone that also will still have headaches, but you're also someone that may have trouble with stuff going on down their arms and their fingers and their hands. You might have trouble with your heart, like blood pressure or arrhythmias. You can have other types of issues related to your lungs and breathing. As you move down your spine, then you're starting to get into your stomach, your gallbladder, and your liver, and your kidneys, and then even down in that lower part of your spine. Now we're starting to talk about things like digestive problems, starting to talk about bloating and irritable bowel and diarrhea and constipation. But we're also talking about diverticulitis. We're also talking about Crohn's and ulcerative colitis. We're also talking about people who have trouble with hormones and cycle and fertility, because those nerves are going to those same areas. And then obviously the people who have trouble with their lower extremities, with their feet, their hand, or I'm sorry, not their hands, their feet and their toes, because again, that's where the power is going. Like if you have the most amazing refrigerator in your house, if you have the best TV in your house and it's plugged in, but the circuit is turned off at the circuit box, it doesn't matter how cool your refrigerator is. It doesn't matter how awesome your TV is. It's not going to work. And if you go in and open your fridge and all the food's spoiled and you take it all out and it stinks and you clean it and all you do is put brand new food in there, but you didn't actually turn the power back on, guess what? The fridge still isn't going to work. And so that's how we are day to day. We're walking through life with circuit breakers that are turned off or tripped because of the stress in our life, and we don't even know it. And the body tries to let us know with these symptoms. And one of the most common ones that we see and deal with are headaches themselves. So what happens when your body gets overwhelmed with stress? There's a physiologic response to that. And the physiological response in your spine is it actually will shift out of position. That's an adaptation. That's called subluxation. What does that mean? Sub means less, lux means power or life or light, and it just means that you have less of it in your body than you're supposed to. So if the nerves go into your heart, it just means your heart has less power than it's supposed to. If it's going to your head or your neck, it just means that area of your body has less power than it's supposed to. If it's going to your bowel or in your low back, it just means that you have less power than you're supposed to. And that's all an adaptation to stress. But when it stays there, it affects it long term. For a day, not a big deal. For a week, your body starts to notice it. For more than that, we start to get damage. And after 2 to 3 weeks, we actually have permanent damage sometimes that can happen after that stress stays there for such a long time. And so we need to just be aware of in our bodies, are there circuit breakers that are tripped? And the physiological response is what you're seeing. If it's there long enough, we can really get damaged into the disc, into the nerves. And that's where you start seeing more of those severe, not just musculoskeletal, but also systemic or full system symptoms starting to show up. So let's take a look a little bit about what that may look like on an x-ray. So this is a pretty cool glance at what this actually looks like in real time on an x-ray. And so, ideally when we look at someone's neck on an x-ray, which as you're looking at this would be the picture on the right, we see all the bones, right? So the blocks of bones that are there, in between those blocks of bones, you've got a space. That's where the disc lives. And ideally, as we're looking at a neck from the side, just like this, you would see a curve in that neck like that red line. So what does that mean? The back of the bones in your neck should actually fold around that red line. And when we lose that curve, there's a lot more stress that is going directly through your spine, and it starts to wear those joints down. So, we would say that this x-ray in front of us is a phase 2 in degeneration, because not only did it lose the curve, but it also has gotten degeneration and disc disease showing up on that x-ray. And you can see that because in between all those discs, there should be a spacing. But as you get down to like the C5, C6 level, you can see those bones are smashed together, and you can see the front of those bones are actually looking kind of funky. That's called a bone spur, but there's degeneration there. We know that takes anywhere from 10 to 20 years to happen. But what you can't see when that happens is what's actually going on with the other soft tissue. So that picture to the left of that shows an issue with a disc in a similar area, but it also shows you the soft tissue. So you can see now where that disc is pushing backwards towards the spinal cord, and it's actually putting pressure there. And it's also hitting one of the nerves that's leaving the spinal cord going out to the body. So when there's nerve irritation and interference like this, it affects your body's ability to heal, recover, and remain healthy. It's just the way it works. Pretty cool, right? Okay, so let's jump into the first type of headache that we're going to talk about tonight. This is a stress headache. I would say overall, these are the most common types of headaches. And so we want to spend some time here just to break this down and help you understand the origin and why these are happening so frequently, and then what you can do to help yourself out. So we touched on this just a bit earlier, but I want to revisit this because when it comes to stress headaches or tension headaches, it's literally coming from what you're seeing right there. And I would say that really all the symptoms that we ever have are coming from these three things right here. So this is the types of stress that we deal with on a regular basis. So in chiropractic, the founder of chiropractic talked about thoughts, toxins, and traumas. So in our world today, we call that physical, chemical, and emotional. But at the end of the day, those are the types of stress that all of us have to deal with. We don't get away from it. None of us. And the world that we live in is full of it. It's chaotic. It's crazy. And that creates stress. I also believe that the world continues to present us with problems every single day that we can do nothing about. And that in and of itself creates stress, because we can get fearful. We can get anxious, because when we are constantly focused on things that we can't control, it creates that tension in our body and therefore our headaches. So let's talk about some things we can just do day to day to help deal with the stress and tension that comes our way. Okay, so let's jump into this. And I apologize for the way this slide showed up on my slideshow. It's not how it looks when we're working through it. But anyway, I'll walk you through it. So the slide title is Let's Think for Recovery. And this is really going to deal with the emotional stress. And I'm not going to dive in super depth with each one of these, but I just want you to realize that, although we can't control most of what's going on in the world, we can't control our attitude. We can't control our perspective. We can't control our thoughts. And so we have to do our best to work on that. And believe me, I know it's hard. I try to be a pretty positive person, and to have perspective on most things. But I will tell you that I have days where I get frustrated, and I have days where I feel like all things are going wrong, and sometimes I'll even catch myself saying, um, "It's always something," or "Now what?" And I have to be careful because I don't want to have that mindset of that. Everything is negative and going the wrong way. And so if you find yourself there, you just have to take a moment and just recognize that right now it could be super frustrating, and that's okay. And then just bounce back and say, you know what, there's a lesson here to be learned. There's something that can be gained. There's some kind of good that's going to happen from this. And even though I don't understand it, we're going to believe that. And I also know that, as a believer, that, that God, no matter what, is good, even when the world is not. And so we just have to do our best to choose our attitude. I tell my kids that they should be a thermostat, not a thermometer. And what I mean by that is, thermostats get to set the temperature of the room. Thermometers just become whatever the temperature is. And so, if you walk into a room that's super hot and exciting, then you're going to become super hot and exciting. But if you walk into a room that's down and negative and pessimistic, then that's what you're going to become. So as a thermostat, and I would challenge all of you guys to become thermostats, is to just understand that you get to control what's going on, and you get to control the attitude and the energy and you're really the dynamic of an entire room, because we have that control. I think it's important for us to make sure that we establish routines. I think you need to establish a routine in the morning to get going. I think you should have some type of routine in the evening to wind down and get ready for bed. I think that it's also important that in establishing a routine that we are mindful of our schedules, because we need to not just create schedules that are full of things for other people, but are full of things that are going to move us forward in our life. We can't put the needs of other people over the most important things that we know need to happen for ourselves to feel productive and fulfilled and on purpose. One of my mentors told me a long time ago that when you build your schedule every single week to include everything, not just work, but life too, and that there needs to be two things too on that schedule. And the first one is things that help you move in the direction you want to go. And number two, things that help you to become the person you want to become. And if we can make sure that we don't leave those things out or let other people's stuff take the place of those, then no matter how busy we are in a given week, at the end of that week, we are going to feel productive and like that we got something accomplished. I think that we need to make sure that all of us, that we get downtime. I think our world is super busy. I think our world is always full of constant stimulation to our brain. I think sometimes we're afraid of downtime. I think we need to be mindful and intentful to make sure we have a time to rest and recover. I think that we need to give ourselves grace, and we need to give other people grace, because we're all human. We all make mistakes. And I think if we give ourselves more grace, we'll automatically give other people more grace. And I think lastly, just having margin, having margin in your schedule, having margin in your finances, having margin in your life, where you don't feel like you're stretched and spread, burning the candle at both ends all the time. And so, just in regards to the emotional stress, these are some keys that I think will help you, because I know they've helped me. And I just want to make sure that we can do this stuff together. I mean, life is hard on our own. It's harder when we don't feel good, and it's even harder when we're by ourselves. So we need to work through this together, and we're here to help each other. And I think if we can just be ourselves, the one that you can't see there says, take off your mask. I just think that the world deserves to know who you are. And I want to give you permission just to be that. And, what you've been through and what you deal with means something. And you can relate to people like no one else. And so we don't need the fake version or the edited version, or, you constantly trying to figure out what to say or what you think someone else wants you to say or how they want you to look. I would just encourage you to show up as you are and just be real, because life is not easy all the time, and that's okay. And neither is it for everyone else. And so if we always present ourselves as it's perfect and we're experts and it's always fun, we actually will limit the ability for people to want to even come and interact. I think also too, social media plays a big role here, because all of us, including me, we see all the best of everyone else's life, and we start to compare, and we believe that the stuff that we see is their reality all the time, even though it's not. And we know that ours is a mess. And so we start comparing our behind the scenes to everybody else's highlight reel. And it's depressing. It can be frustrating, and it just adds to that stress. And so, I would just encourage you to just be who you are, because that's the easiest thing to do if you allow yourself to be. And for some people, that may actually take some work, because You've never done that before. And so I would just say when it comes to emotional stress, this is a big thing as far as not compiling and adding more stress every single day. And these are just some tricks to help with that. Now, structurally, we're going to take a look and see exactly where these things are coming from. So when it comes to these headaches, if we're talking root cause neurologically, these are the areas that you're going to get the most trouble. So you're going to see tension and stress built from C1, which is the very, very top bone in your neck, down to C7, which is the bottom bone in your neck. And then actually the upper 5 vertebrae in your thoracic spine, which is the upper part of your back. These are the root of tension and stress headaches that, I mean, we literally see this every single day. And people just build up so much tension and so much stress in these areas that it literally is the basis of headaches. And why this is so important is that 70% of all headaches, 70% of them all, are cervicogenic or stress type headaches that originate from this area and region of your spine. And so, like, there's literally not enough Tylenol on the planet to help get those bones back into position and get actual relief from these headaches. There just isn't. I mean, you could take Tylenol all day long and it will do nothing to help reposition those bones and get the stress off, even if it gives you some relief day to day. And that's why they come back. But neurologically, that's where they're coming from. So let's take a look at some sinus headaches. So let's do a deep dive here with sinus headaches, at least just for a little bit, because this is, especially now, this time of year is a time where people are dealing with some of this stuffy nose, itchy, watery eyes, runny nose, all the pressure behind your cheekbones, all the pressure across your forehead. You can't breathe. You're stuffy. Snot's running everywhere. It's like sometimes you just wonder, like, where is that stuff made? How can it never stop? Like, how does it just keep coming? But that's when we get into this sinus type headache. So let's look neurologically to see where we see the connection to this area of the sinuses. So when it comes to these sinus headaches, neurologically, there's really 3 spots that we are going to check if you come in with this type of pressure. C2 specifically, that is a huge one when it comes to sinus. This is direct wiring to your maxillary and your frontal sinuses. And so massive connection there neurologically. Usually just by applying pressure to C2, you actually get some opening of your nostrils and you can breathe better. And so we definitely check that. C6 and C7 are also directly tied into those sinus headaches, but we see this all the time as people are suffering with the sinus stuff that goes on. And it is literally directly connected back to that. Specifically, I would say most common is that C2 level, but neurologically, that's what we're talking about. That's the wiring that we deal with when it comes to these sinus headaches. Let's jump into migraine headaches here. So with migraine headaches, these are frustrating to say the least, but they are debilitating as well. And now some of you may experience migraines once a year. Some of you actually may experience them more frequently. We've had patients that come in that literally get migraines every day, and I just, my heart just goes out because I know how frustrating and painful they are because I have suffered over the years with migraines. And so, some of you might be like me where you get like a little aura visual disturbance before the migraine kicks in. That was always a trigger for me that I knew, okay, here, this is going to be one of those days. And some of you may not, because that's not always the case. But these will shut you down. For a lot of people, you become light sensitive. For a lot of people, you become nauseous. You just need to get to a quiet room. You need to try to lay down. Oftentimes, you can't even get comfortable, no matter what you're doing. They just literally have to pass. I know some people go to the ER to get injections. Some people take medicine. Like for me, I just literally had to sleep through it or try to sleep through it. And I used to have migraines multiple times, per season or quarter, probably 10 to 15 a year. And so now I really don't unless I get super, super stressed. And then, guess what? Lo and behold, they'll resurface. But, comparatively, not even close to where I used to be. And so neurologically, I want to show you where these show up when it comes to neurologically and structurally, where they show up on your spine. And then we'll talk also about some other things that can be connected to that. So the migraine headaches neurologically are going to show up somewhere between C6 and T3. And believe it or not, because of, the way hormonally that these headaches can be tied in, L1 and L2 down there at the bottom of your spine is also connected very much so to um, the migraine headaches. I would also say too, there's almost always a trigeminal nerve connection as well, which is a cranial nerve, and that also is going to be connected through the cervical spine. And so these migraines, man, they can be debilitating and frustrating. And if you're like me, you do your best to try to find food triggers and things like that. But at the end of the day, it's really stress that gets you, and it just takes you over the threshold. So let's take a look here. I thought this was a little bit funny when I was doing this. So this lady's going to see her chiropractor. Here's what she said. She says the pain starts in my husband's lower back, then it travels up his spine to his neck, then it comes out of his mouth into my ears, and that's why I get these headaches. And the chiropractor's like, yeah, I'm not so sure about that. Why don't you lay down? Because we're going to check those areas that we just discussed: C1 to C7, T1 to T5, L1, L2. We're going to check to see how those are doing, because what I'm assuming is that they are subluxated. They've got interference. So then the next thing is we have to figure out what causes those bones, those structural areas to shift. And that's what we're going to talk about next. So when it comes to the causes of subluxation, it really comes down to our lifestyle. It comes down to the things that we're doing every day. It comes down to position. It comes down to food. It comes down to choices. It comes down to repetition and overuse. It comes down to the stress. That's what we talked about. And just positionally, as we are on technology, as we're on our phones, as we are sitting all day, we put tons of additional stress on our spine, to the likes of this, right? So, in an upright position, our head weighs about 12 pounds. As we start to flex forward, now we're looking at a head that weighs 32 pounds, and that's without even looking down. And then this last one, you can see it's about 42 pounds, and that's just with forward head positioning. Now, if you turn and look down at your phone in that position, there's a massive multiplier, like even in a neutral position. So if you go back to that left picture, in your skull, at that point, your brain in your skull weighs 12 pounds. Let's call it 12. If you're in that position and from there just look down at your phone, that's 60 pounds of pressure that's now on your neck and spine and all those muscles. And so if you're in those other positions, so that's a 5-time multiplier there. So you can imagine, as you start to multiply that out with that forward head posture, it becomes insane, the amount of pressure and tension that is constantly building on your neck and head. So here's the deal: the dangerous belief, right? We already talked before that the headaches are the problem. That's a dangerous belief. So we know they're not the problem. They're letting you know there's a problem. But another dangerous belief is that there's nothing that can be done. And that's why people, I think, get on this treadmill or merry-go-round of just waking up and dealing with it every single day, doing the same things, not changing anything else, taking this type of medicine first over the counter, then this type of medicine that's a prescription. And I think the reason we do that is because we've also been told that nothing can be done, and that is not the truth. So let's talk about the solution. So number one, we need to understand the causes of headaches. We also need to understand the causes of subluxation and how we attack. If you have neurological interference that's structurally there every single day, we need to, number one, figure that out. Number two, we need to get you adjusted in some type of a rhythm. What's the rhythm? It depends on you. It depends on your stress levels. It depends on what's going on in your life. For some people, getting adjusted once a week works. For some people, once a month can even get the job done. But for some of you, most of you, especially out of the gates, there's a rhythm of 2 to 3 even times a week that has to be established to stop momentum in the wrong direction and then get it going in the right direction and help your body start to hold that. We also need to get into the bad habits. We need to think about, the stuff that we talked about emotionally. So do you have routines? Are you giving yourself downtime? Are you choosing your attitude? Are you getting enough sleep? Are you getting hydrated? Are you eating the right foods? And then lastly, we need to get movement, and we need to do exercises and strengthening to make sure we're helping our body to sustain the stress that we put it through. If we sit at desks all day, there's probably things we need to work on to make sure those muscles are stretched, or strong and balanced. If we are lifting and turning and twisting a lot, then we need to make sure our core is strong. And so there's ways and things that we can do to make sure our body is more structurally sound. Now let's get into some of these triggers that we know are real when it comes to headaches. So these are some of the things that we can limit whenever we deal with headaches on a regular basis. So foods with any type of preservatives, wine, cheese, dairy in general, I would say artificial sweeteners is one of the biggest culprits that we find when it comes to being a trigger for headaches, specifically migraines. In that, you're going to see diet soda, right? Because it has those artificial sweeteners. So anything like saccharin, aspartame, Splenda, all of those can be major triggers. Dehydration is a trigger. Sugar can be a trigger. Lipitor, like the statin drug Lipitor, is a main causer of headaches. And then lastly, caffeine, which is weird because for some people caffeine will help, but caffeine can also be a trigger for headaches. We also want to be aware of and avoid the toxic top five. What does that look like? The first one is medications themselves, right? It's so weird. Like we take those to help, but they can also hurt. Number two, our household and beauty products. We just need to be aware that there's so many chemicals everywhere around us that just get into our body and absorbed into our body and into our bloodstream that are triggers. We need to be aware that the stuff we cook with, even Teflon, the nonstick, it puts off these fumes and we again just absorb them, we inhale them, and they can cause disruptions. The food, the drinks, the stuff that we buy at the grocery store, again, just full of chemicals that most of us don't even think twice about, that can be triggers for headaches. And then heavy metals, biotoxins like lead, mercury, mold, that type of thing. All of these things, including those last triggers, can be part of it. And that's the truth. And so let's dive into just another belief that a lot of us have bought into, and that our problems will just go away if we ignore them. And I think most of us know that's not true. If you were driving your car today and all of a sudden the check engine light came on, if you just put duct tape over it so you couldn't see the light and kept driving it, would that fix it? You know, if you were asleep at night and the because I mean let's face it, smoke alarms only go off in the middle of the night, it seems. So if you were asleep and the smoke alarm went off in your house, but you didn't like that beeping sound, would you just go take the battery out and then go back to sleep, or would you actually go and try to figure it out? And so for some reason, when it comes to our health, we tend to just ignore it or take things to cover it up and not change anything. So what I want to be able to do is, we talked about different ways within lifestyle. We talked about structurally and even through chiropractic how we can attack headaches, which we see so frequently. But I want to also give you some additional options that are more natural, that are you know, I guess alternative that can be helpful. So I'm going to give you like a top 10, herbs or supplements that you could also add in just to make sure you have in your arsenal to help handle these headaches as you're getting to the root of the problem, but getting some relief as you're in the process. So the first one is magnesium. This is, man, I will tell you that we are magnesium deficient across the board. Most people are in need of it, if not for headaches, for muscle spasms, if not for muscle spasms, for digestion, if not for digestion, for constipation. So magnesium is a big one. Number two, a gluten-free diet. Just being aware of that protein is plays such a havoc. I would actually go further, just say just grains in general, but gluten-free for sure. You can use essential oils like peppermint oil, lavender oil. I mean, chiropractic is just, man, I'm telling you, it is one of the best avenues to just be healthy, to remove stress from your body. But even in specific to headaches, which we don't like talking about treating things, but man, it can be so helpful with headaches. There's other herbs that can be helpful, like feverfew and butterbur. B complex vitamins. A lot of people who struggle with headaches, specifically migraines too, they're just B vitamin deficient. They're plowing through their B vitamins, and they just don't have enough. And so supplementing B vitamins can be very helpful. Staying hydrated, that's another big one. That goes along with the magnesium and other electrolytes because we just don't get enough. And then, doing a detox bath, so like an Epsom salt bath can also be super helpful. Stretching and moving, just getting movement, getting out, getting fresh air, getting away from a screen, getting away from your computer. Those are all helpful. And then you can do cayenne pepper. You can use it as a muscle rub. You can add it in. But those are also additional things that are really good at helping with inflammation and helping you to just battle these things called headaches. So here's the deal. If you are walking through this battle ready program, there's a couple things I just want to bring to your attention. We have a amazing event coming up called Conquering Cancer. So I want to make sure that you are aware of that. It'll be the first Saturday in November, and we are going to break down cancer in a way that you've never seen before. And most of the people who come will come again because it's just so impactful. But we are going to talk about the root cause of cancer. We're going to talk about different types of things that you can do if you or someone has cancer, as far as how to attack it and how to protect your body and the different options for treatment, and just making sure you understand it at a whole nother level and trying to give yourself the best chance possible to recover if you have it and not get it if you don't. I mean, that's the real thing. And then each month after that, we are going to have a continuation of our Battle Ready series. We also know that there's always people looking for answers when it comes to weight optimization and doing it the right way. We know there's lots of ways to do it, but we're here to help with that for you metabolically, because we know that's a thing. We also know it affects healing. We also know it affects inflammation, which makes you hurt. And so we want to be here to help you do that. And so please comment below. We will pay attention, and we'll look to see what the comments are, and we'll respond as fast as we can. And we're here to help. And if you're someone who has these headaches and you've been dealing with them for years, and you don't have options, or you're not happy with how things are going, like, we're here to help. And so if you watch this and you would like to come in for a consultation, just let them know that you saw the headache workshop, and we'll allow you to come in for $47. And if you come in for that 47, that'll include your history, your consult, and we'll even include your first adjustment. And if you need x-rays, that's also included. So all of that for just 47. And so we would love to help you. We understand what it's like to deal with headaches. I personally used to battle these all the time, and so I get it. And so we want to be a resource for you. We want to be a place where not only you get rid of headaches, but where you get healthy and where you stay healthy, because we do believe you have a purpose, you have passion, you have a mission, and we know that when you don't have your health, you can't do those things very well. And so we look forward to walking this journey with you. We'll see you soon. And don't forget, Conquering Cancer coming up the first Saturday of the month in November. Let's go.